Welcome to the Manx Theatre Podcast.
Come on to the theatre.
Hello, Happy New Year and welcome to episode 19 of the Manx Theatre Podcast with me, Neil Callin. Neil King has decided to take a back seat for a couple of months, so for the next few episodes at least, you're stuck with just little old me. Thank you to everyone who's listened to our previous episodes. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome along and thanks for joining us. You can still listen to all of our previous episodes at manxradio.com/podcasts and through all the usual podcast outlets. Whilst you're there, make sure to subscribe, give us a like and rate our little podcast because that's important in the world of podcasting. You can also keep up to date with what's going on by following our social media accounts on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Coming up on this week's podcast, I chat with Lewis Kelly, fresh from treading the boards playing Prince Rupert of Ramsey in this year's Gaiety pantomime, Sleeping Beauty. Unfortunately, in the last couple of weeks we've entered into a second lockdown here in the island, which has sadly meant that the Villa and Gaiety have had to close. Howard tells us it's only going to be a few weeks, but it already looks like a few of the upcoming shows are likely to move dates. These include the Christian World Theatre School's production of The Wizard of Oz, the Douglas Choral Union's production of Shrek the Musical, and Madfa's Festival of One-Act Plays, which I believe is now possibly moving to June. It's already been announced that Madfa's Easter Festival of Full-Length Plays has sadly been cancelled again this year, as current border and travel restrictions will prevent teams from travelling from off-island to compete. Let's hope this lockdown doesn't last too long and we get back to normal very soon. Well, without any further ado, let's dim the house lights and lift the curtain on my chat with Lewis Kelly.
You're listening to the Manx Theatre Podcast.
I'm joined today on the Manx Theatre Podcast by Manx-born professional actor, singer, dancer Lewis Kelly, who's fairly recently fresh from treading the boards as Prince Rupert of Ramsey in this year's Gaiety pantomime, Sleeping Beauty. Lewis, welcome to the Manx Theatre Podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's great to get you on board. So, Panto then, just a couple of weeks ago, have you recovered now from that?
Yeah, I think so. It was quite a physical role, actually. I got to fight a dragon, got to kiss a very lovely princess. It was quite a lot of scenes, actually, for a prince. Usually the prince is like
it was quite an active role for a prince, because quite often the prince's role is just to stand there and look pretty and marry the princess at the end, isn't it?
But then this is Sleeping Beauty, so all she did was sleep. So someone had to take the reins.
So is this the first time you've done Panto? Have you done a few before?
Oh, I actually started when I was here in the Isle of Man when I was 17. I did Dick Whittington, and I was one of the RATs. Yeah,
that was Taylorian.
And then that was Taylorian. Yeah, that was my first with Taylorian, actually. Yeah.
Right.
That opened the doors for me in Taylorian.
Because that was going to be one of the questions I was going to ask you. Where did you start? Because I think for me, the first time I really became aware of you was Cats.
Oh yeah, that was 2 years later. I started with Manx Ops, Anything Goes, when I was 16. In fact, my 16th birthday was in like the middle of show week. Yeah, I was an ensemble member in that, part of the Shanty Quartet.
Oh, wonderful!
I got a little solo in a quartet number. That was a great starter. I loved that show.
So that's what gave you the bug then? Is that what started you off then? What gave you the passion for it?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like. I did a show called Beats and Pulse in high school. That was like more singing and dancing. There was no real acting or anything like that. And when my parents mentioned to Gary Harrison, because they're friends with Gary Harrison, he was chairman of Manx Ops at the time.
Righto.
And he said, "Oh, why don't you come down and audition for this?" And I was like, okay. And I went down and I gave it a try and I really liked it. Like they gave me the Shanty Quartet, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm kind of important. At the time being a young teenager. And I did the show and I absolutely loved it. Like, obviously I was very nervous at first going on stage for the first time in my life, like at the Gaiety Theatre, like a proper stage with senior march and everything. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. Like, the rehearsal process was fun. It was just a new experience, and like I was like, I want to do this again. This is great. And I basically went straight out of that, auditioned for a school show, Little Shop of Horrors, and then Dick Whittington was my first panto. Straight after that, this all in the same year. So I got the buzz and jumped on the train straight away.
Yeah. So which part did you play in Little Shop of Horrors?
Oh, I played the dentist actually.
Oren P.
Quite fun.
Scrivello, DTS.
Yes, yes. I like playing evil characters. I've discovered.
Oh,
I
they're the
mean,
best.
I liked it back then, and I still like it today.
I think the dentist is certainly a role that I would like to play if the opportunity ever came around again.
Yeah, it's so much fun. You're just crazy. You just go crazy. Basically, I kind of adopted a bit of a Jim Carrey vibe, and just went from there. The
Had you
hardest
seen
thing actually
had you
was
seen the
being
original
dead.
film before you did it? With
Oh, I did my research.
yeah,
Yeah,
or
'cause
the musical anyway,
the
with Steve Martin playing the role.
yeah, Steve Martin, yeah, and like he was brilliant. He was very like Elvis-y, greaseball kind of.
Mm.
But that being a film, I think it was played. It was great. It was amazing. But like on stage, the theater, you do go mental with it because obviously your actions are bigger for a bigger audience, like in front of you. There's no like up close camera shots and stuff. So
And then
yeah.
nothing beats that feedback of a live audience either, does there? So you do
Oh
something
yeah.
and the audience like it, so you make it a bit bigger next time round.
Absolutely, or even in the moment. But then you go too far, and then it's like, oh, okay.
Pull it back a little bit.
Yep.
So you went on then to do Dick Whittington, and then the year after that, would that have been Cats? Then the year after that,
No, Dick Whittington was when I got asked to audition for Evita the next year.
right? Okay.
So that was the summer show, and I was on ensemble for that. But that show was massive. Like it's a huge show.
Oh yeah.
Lots of ensemble participation in that, and I feel like every show I did just got better and better until I went to uni. I absolutely loved every show that I did leading up to uni, and Evita was the last one just before uni.
So
And
was
I
Cats?
never wanted to leave to go to uni because it meant that Evita period was over because it was in August, and then the end of August, beginning of September, I left for uni.
Right.
And obviously, like we just finished Evita, like you've made so many good friends from the show, and it was obviously a great show. And then it's over. It's like, oh,
So was Cats then your first year back? Then your first summer after your first year?
yeah. I came back for Easter, and that was when they were auditioning. And then I went back to uni, and I got the email with the casts list. And when they gave me the part of Munkustrap, I went crazy. My friends ran it and they were like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I got the lead role in Cats." And they were like, "Oh my god, I thought you were like crying or dying or something like that."
But
They thought something bad had happened.
no, but it was a fantastic performance. It just the stage presence was fantastic.
I think the staging in general, like John Cumberledge did a great job with that show.
Yes.
He worked so hard on it, like because he's a great he's a great artist as well, like on the stage and on paper. Like he'd drawn out every single cat and how he wanted it to look like, and then all the costumes were exactly that, like what he'd drawn.
Yes.
Like his brain is amazing, and even during rehearsals, like not everyone, like I'm actually not amazingly trained dancer. I had like maybe a year and a half contemporary jazz, a bit of ballet here and there. But he'd like in rehearsal, instead of just doing the moves, choreographing and blocking the show, he'd throw in a bit of like, right, with this, like this is the technique. I want it to look like this. And so it was almost like a class as well as, well, it was a master class as well as just a rehearsal.
Those are the best kind of shows, aren't they? When you just learn with every routine that you do.
Yeah.
I mean, I had that in
Yeah.
my early days as well, because I'd never had a single dance lesson, but I've done that many shows with Manx Ups over the years, and you learn the different routines. I've done the same tap routine in about 3 different shows. So when it comes to tapping, I can do that tap routine, but the others, not so much. So when you went to university then, you went to the University of Cumbria?
Yes. Up in Carlisle, up north.
So did you do a BA in performing arts then?
Yeah, I did for my first 2 years. I did performing arts, and then my third year I changed course because it suited me better to a dance and musical theatre course. My third year, or the third year performing arts course, it would have just been purely basically the whole year you did a lot of your own stuff and your own coursework. It was very much left down to you. But I didn't feel like I'd learnt enough at the end of my 2 years.
Yeah.
And dance and musical theatre, you still had like some tutor work, and you had a lot of outside directors and choreographers come in and do a show with you or do some classes with you. And that I preferred that, because I'm still training. I can't really learn from myself.
Yeah.
Something, because I haven't done it before, if that makes sense. Yeah, I swapped and did a dance and musical theatre course. So my degree that I got was a BA Honours in Performing Arts, specialising in dance and musical theatre. It's quite a long sentence, but
It trips off the tongue nicely anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I had to make sure I knew which one was the correct order. BA Honours in dance and Performing Arts. Yeah.
So after you graduated then, what did you go on to do? What was your first job out of university?
First job? So when did I think, it was Panto again. Yeah, because I graduated, our uni graduated in November. Like, we finished in May and then graduated in November. So we came back when new year groups were in Carlisle, and I graduated on the 26th of November, and then on the 27th, I started my first day down in Bath doing Jack and the Beanstalk as a dancer in Pantomime.
That's a nice drive from Carlisle to Bath.
Oh, I didn't drive. I got a few trains.
Still, it's not a short journey, is it?
No, it really wasn't. It's like west. It's like west of London. Yeah. So it was a good few hours.
So that was a dancer then, yeah.
Yeah, that was with UK Productions.
Nice little plug there.
Yes.
Hopefully get a new contract in the future.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be back.
So over the years then, how long's it been then since you graduated?
It'll have been, we're in 2021 now, aren't we? 6 years.
6 years.
6 years. I graduated when I was 21 and I'm turning 27 this year.
So over the 6 years then, have you managed to sort of stay fairly in work quite a lot? Have you managed to go from job to job to job?
Yeah, I've been quite lucky actually, yeah. It's taken, at the start it was a bit slow, and I wasn't very picky with my auditions, so I went for ones that were way out of my skills range, let's say. So basically my first audition, I remember this very well because it was also one of my most humiliating auditions. My first audition out of that Panto with Jack and the Beanstalk, I went to do a Mamma Mia Royal Caribbean ship audition as a dancer. But these boys are ballet trained for years, since they're 5 maybe or something like that. And I'm in a room full of 50 lads, and the first round is ballet technique, and I'm there maybe half a year under my belt. Don't even know what the names of some of the moves are, tendu and releve and stuff like that. Don't know what they are. And then ballet technique, round 1. I'm definitely the worst boy out of a group of 50 boys, and they do it in twos as well across the room. Ooh. So you're just there all right, but you just got to own it. Even if you know you're rubbish, you just got to make it. It's a performance at the end of the day. They just want to see that you can perform well.
Did it feel like that episode of Friends where Joey's at the audition and he's got to take the dance audition because he's oversold his own CV?
Oh yeah. Oh God, that's a good episode actually.
My daughter's recently got hooked on Friends, and we're watching 3-4 episodes every night. To a certain extent, it's great fun because there's some great stuff. There's some stuff that's not really suitable for a 10-year-old girl, but we have to switch over from that one. But it's some great stuff.
Oh, Friends is so good. It's so iconic.
And it's it finished 20 years ago now as well, which is scary.
I know. Well, there's 1 in 4 people at least know a quote from any Friends episode ever.
Yeah. So you mentioned there you auditioned for, was it Royal Caribbean Cruising?
Yeah, that was the first one I auditioned for.
So you've done, pardon the expression, done a bit of cruising over the years, haven't you?
Yes, that'll be. Well, it would have been 3 years last year in a row, but obviously got cancelled.
Do you know, it's funny. You look back about 20 years, and cruising was a bit of a joke, really, wasn't it? Oh, you're only going cruising because you can't get work here. But But nowadays, the
Yeah,
whole attitude to sort of the musical productions on cruise ships has changed dramatically.
absolutely. Yeah. And even when I was at uni, so 6 years ago, like my tutors were like, don't do cruising. It's just like a cheap way out. You don't get recognized. Meh, meh, meh. But more and more cruises nowadays are getting the big musicals. Norwegian have just got Kinky Boots. There's really big, like not like famous musicals, but musical type shows like Choir of Man,
Hmm.
which are Norwegian again. Norwegian's taking the good ones, which Norwegian Cruise Lines has. But yeah, there's Cats, Mamma Mia, We Will Rock You, Hairspray, all that stuff. Like,
Joe Hillard was doing Grease.
yes, he was. Yeah,
But I suppose in a way, because you're not just doing that one show, you're doing 2 or 3 shows throughout the week, aren't you? You're sort of doing other little
yeah,
shows and bits and pieces. So it's a little bit like a floating rep theatre, really, isn't it?
yeah, definitely. They have because when I audition for Cats, the other material they give you is from one of the other shows, for like one of the audition materials they give you. And I think the one I had was called "Come Fly with Me," which is a very like kind of top hat and then like pop star sensation kind of show. So just a variety show, I guess. So instead of just going to see Cats on a ship, you're gonna go see Cats, few lounge shows maybe, and this "Come Fly with Me" show.
Yeah.
So it kind of caters to everyone's taste, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Bit of general cabaret and a full on show and a bit of other sort of general music and stuff as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. If you're interested in local musicians and artists, check out our sister podcast, Supergroup, where Neil King talks to Manx songwriters and musicians as they set up their fantasy supergroup.
You're listening to the Manx Theatre Podcast.
Over the years then, between Manx operatic, Taylorian, professional work, what's been the favourite role that you've played?
Definitely monkey strapping Cats. 100%. I say this every time, and a lot of people ask me, and I'm like, monkey strapping Cats. It was the first main role I got on a big stage, and there wasn't a single second I didn't enjoy like rehearsals to the end of the last day. I love the musical. The part, it was my dream role before I got it. It's still my dream role now, but obviously in a big professional world, you've got to be more of a ballet dancer, and it's more cutthroat.
Yeah. I guess by the end of the week, you were probably quite happy to see the end of the cat suit.
You know what? No,
No.
I had 2 costumes. Like
Uh,
I had this one here, the grey one right there.
oh.
That was my obviously my photo shoot one, but that was the backup one. But they took a bit longer to make the first one because it was so glorious.
Because there are
But yeah,
there are a few stories of hair dryers being used between shows to dry out the cat suits because they were so full of sweat.
yeah. I think the costume ladies may not have enjoyed it as much because it's 30 other people's dirt. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also they didn't want to wash. I'm pretty sure anyone wouldn't want to wash that many costumes every single night.
No.
So I think a hairdryer was the other option.
Or at least the tumble dryer anyway.
Yeah.
So Monkey Strap then, you said that's been your favourite role and you hinted that would be your dream role as well then.
Yeah, I have others. I have other more realistic dream roles, let's say.
Okay, what's a more realistic one then?
Evan Hansen from Dear Evan Hansen. That is my favorite. Or like apart from Monkey Strap, that is my favorite. I love the musical. His role, the songs in that, just everything. I think musically that is the best show at the moment.
Brilliant.
It's my opinion, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the music in it is amazing, and his like I think Ben Platt plays it perfectly, and for him to be on the recording, like because obviously you hear it before you see it because you can find it on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. And when I first heard Waving Through a Window, I was like, whoa, this is sick. Then I heard the rest of the show and I was like, whoa, the whole show is sick. Like sometimes you get a show where it's like, I like this one song, but the other songs, meh, the full show. And when I went to see it, his character is just incredible. And I'd love to play it. I'd love to play this little insecure boy who's got no friends and tries to do anything he can to get out of his comfort zone, and there's obviously a girl he loves. There's always a love story and everything, but
Oh, yeah.
it's a bit different in this one. And he just, yeah, he gets taken down a very dark path just through a few little lies, but makes it believable, and it's incredible. Like, I advise anyone who likes musical theatre to go see it.
Well, when they
That's my
open
dream
again-
role.
Well, when the theatres open again, we'll make sure that's on the list of shows to see. So, talking about theatres opening, where were you when everything closed? What was your job at the time?
I was rehearsing for my third cruise ship in Miami.
Lovely.
So it was March time, March the 15th, 16th, I think. We all got called into one studio. There were about 3 other casts there as well. And we all got called into one studio, and our production director or something, like basically the boss, was stood there, and she was like, guys, we're all actually, we've booked your flights home. We expect to see you in a month. Yep. And everyone was just like, whoa, okay. And that was in the morning at like 11 a.m. And I looked at my flight app, and my flight was at 6 p.m. that day. And I was like, oh, so I'm packing right now. I've got to go home and pack right now and say my goodbyes. Because the airport's also like a 45-minute drive away. And you got picked up by a minibus, which they
International
hired.
flight, it's got to be there 2 hours beforehand. And
Yep. So it was all a rush for me.
yeah.
They flew me. At the time, Spain was the worst hit, and they flew me to Madrid.
Nice.
Where's the logic in that? We're gonna fly you home. We're gonna fly you home for safety. And
But through the worst infected area at the time.
Yeah. And they also it sounds like I'm flying them off. Like, they're a great company, but they just they tried to do it as fast as they could, like get everyone gone as fast as they could. But I stayed there for like 3 hours, I think. But there were no shops open, none of the normal airport stuff open, so I was kind of sat there on my belly. And then they flew me to London, and then I stayed there for a few months.
Right, so you didn't come back to the island straight away then? You had to stay UK for a bit?
Yes, I was in Gloucester with my girlfriend at the time, and then I came home in July. I flew home in July because it'd been a few months, and I think I needed to see my family.
Yeah.
And obviously, the Isle of Man was out of lockdown.
Yeah, so say
So
by July we were allowing people back again, weren't we?
Yeah.
So what have you been doing then to keep yourself busy since July? Have you got yourself a little office job or?
No, I applied for many things, and nothing got back to me. I've been unemployed since then. All I've been doing is part of the CrossFit IOM team, and I've just been training every day, just working on myself. And then obviously Panto season came along, and I did that.
Perfect.
I came and did Panto.
So you said that when they closed down the production then back in March, we'll see you in a month's time. Have you had any indication 10 months later when you're likely to get back? Because
They've been keeping us up to date with everything, and every month they said, we're hoping to get you back at this time, at this time, at this time. And the latest update is the end of April.
Well, hopefully now with the rollout of the vaccine, it'll help to speed things up and we'll get back to normal sooner than later.
Yeah, we hope so. They've only just changed it to April, though, because it was going to be February the 28th, I think. So the end of February. Yeah. That was when they were going to get us over. And a few days ago, they sent an email out saying, oh, no, it's going to be April. So they do keep us up to date, at least.
Good. Okay, then. Going back to our list of questions that we sent you. What do you think is the part that you were born to play? Now, this is the part that's either the most like you, so that's basically Lewis Kelly, or do you think it's the part that you could literally just walk into and play?
Okay, I have a potential two.
Okay.
First one being Fiyero from Wicked.
Oh, yeah.
He is actually quite a nice character. He's portrayed as a ladies' man, but he doesn't see himself like that, and he goes for the kind of like interesting people or people that aren't like as full of themselves, like because like Galinda's a bit like, I'm the popular one, I'm this, I'm that, and he's like, oh, stop it, I don't like that. But yeah, I had a hard time thinking of this one, if I'm honest, because it's hard not to think of parts that you want to play.
Yeah.
like Dear Evan Hansen, and Evan Hansen was my second answer for this one, because when I was a teenager, I was very shy and I was a nervous person. So I feel like I've been there, I guess. Like I've been in his kind of, not completely in his mental state, because he is very like socially insanely nervous, or socially not there, I guess. But I feel like I understand his awkwardness. I understand his shy loneliness, I guess. I mean, obviously I had my friends, but at the same time, I was quite a shy teenager.
There's a great Lee Evans joke that said that, he had an imaginary friend when he was a kid. It was a real person. I just imagined it was my friend.
I've seen all of Lee Evans. I haven't heard that one.
There you go. There's a new one for you. You have to find that one.
Hey.
Okay, so over the years, then you've done lots of shows. You've worn lots of costumes, where the budgets have been good and the budgets have been not so good. What
Not
are
so good.
the best and or worst costumes you've ever had to wear?
Oh, okay. Let's start with the worst one, shall we?
Oh yeah.
There's nothing like a good old-fashioned bedsheet ghost. And that was my first panto in Bath.
Wonderful.
My first professional panto in Bath. I was in the ensemble, and they decided I'd be the ghost. I had white tights, ballet pumps, like the pink ones, the proper ones,
Yeah.
and just a bed sheet with eye holes.
No expense spent.
It is the easiest costume, mine, but
Oh yeah.
I worked that. I really worked that costume. But come on, I mean, there really wasn't much effort in that one compared to, like, say, our panto, the Sleeping Beauty one, the monster, the dragon.
Yeah.
They are probably the worst costumes for the people inside them because of how annoying they are, but they are incredible.
Yeah.
The audience gasped every time one of them came on. It was amazing.
Yeah. And your best costume?
See, if we're going for favourite, it's got to be Cats. It's got to be
Yeah.
Monkey Strap. Cats again. I'm sorry. I know I mention it all the time.
It's
If we're
amazing.
going for,
It's amazing how many
Okay.
times costumes that have been picked by John Cumbledge come up as people's favourite costumes.
oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Has it been in the past episodes?
Oh yes. Because you'll know this
Yeah.
because you've obviously listened to them all.
Oh, yeah. I listen to every single one. Yeah.
The man does have a good eye for a good costume, though, doesn't he?
He does. I told you, he's such an artist. And he loves his wigs as well. Even the wigs in Cats were just perfect. They were brilliant. But in terms of easiest costume, actually Prince Rupert of Ramsey,
Yeah.
because I just wore the same thing the whole way through, apart from I changed a waistcoat.
Unlike Joe, who had about 48 different costume changes.
Oh yeah. I also I have one costume that's actually the best and worst costume for me.
Oh.
So I was also a prince on one of my cruise ships in a show called Land of Make Believe. And part of my prince costume was, so there was a scene where I jousted with the main male character in the show. And it was one of those horses that you slip yourself into, and you have like the horse has prince legs already on the side of them, so it looks like your legs.
Yeah.
So you're holding this giant horse, and then you've got this lance, and then you're charging. It's the best costume because it looks hilarious, and it was a really well-made costume. But the worst because it was heavy. It was my first scene on as the prince, and it made me sweat, like not like the stage already didn't anyway.
Yeah.
And I had a quick change, which was about 10 seconds, to run off, get a stage crew member to help me out of it. So I'm like trying to pencil myself and duck at the same time. It's ripping half of my real prince costume off, reattach my cape and stuff, run back on, and then do a song. So just because of the situation and as a whole, it was the best and worst costume.
That must have been a great costume to observe in the wings.
Oh, yeah. Well, to observe anywhere. But the wing, yeah. I think people that weren't having to deal with that were finding it hilarious.
Excellent.
You're listening to the Manx Theatre Podcast with Neil King and Neil Callin.
Okay, now this next one then. This is one of the trickiest questions. Certainly for the male people that we invite and interview on the podcast. And this is our gender swap question. So which role would you most like to play of the opposite gender?
I must say, I didn't find this as difficult. I didn't realise it was causing other people struggle.
All right.
But Rose from Dogfight, she I don't know if you've seen the show. I mean,
No.
I haven't seen the show, but I've listened to the soundtrack a million times. She is like the most gorgeous character inside, and well, she's portrayed as an ugly person on the outside, but and that's the whole like story behind Dogfight is that these people, these like guys that go to war, try and like have a one last hurrah, and they bet on who can find the ugliest date. Rose turns up and is ends up being the ugliest date. She has the most phenomenal songs, and she's played by in the soundtrack. She's played by Lindsay Mendez, who's played Elphaba, who's done a million musicals, and she's the most phenomenal voice ever. And she just made me fall in love with the show. Not even the male part made me fall in love with that show like she did. Her songs like Before It's Over, Pretty Funny, they're so emotional. And some of them emotionally good, some of them emotionally like tear your heart out, like you feel so sorry for her kind of thing. But she's an amazing character and definitely like the driving force of that show, 100%.
So it's quite an emotional journey to that character then.
Absolutely, yeah. And the person that breaks her heart, she keeps falling in love with because he didn't mean he learns to fall in love with, well, basically at first he asks her on this date because she's ugly and he wants to win the money, but then he falls for her because he sees how much of an amazing person she is, and she kind of forgives him because he genuinely does like end up pouring his heart out to her, but then he goes off to war and loses some friends and then comes back and is this emotional guy like wreck and obviously damaged from the war.
Mm-hmm.
She's just this lovable. I imagine, like, obviously I haven't seen the show, but I imagine everyone that ever goes to see that show falls in love with her over and over and over again every time she comes on stage.
Brilliant.
She's just so innocent.
Now, one question I like to ask you young'uns is what new... Yeah, you're only 27, you're the right side of 30. What new shows have you discovered? What are you listening to at the moment that's getting your juices flowing?
There's not much I'm listening to that's very new, but before the whole pandemic happened, I discovered a show called And Juliet.
Yes.
That surprised me so much. I went to see it in London, and I don't really read up on shows beforehand because I do like to be surprised, but I knew that this was about Romeo and Juliet and the story, like what would happen if Juliet didn't actually kill herself. And it's just this incredibly funny show about how she goes on and tries to find new love or tries to have an adventure or like makes new friends. Basically, she changes her way of life because...
It's a bit of a jukebox musical as well, isn't it?
It is. So many famous pop songs. So many famous. She turns a Britney Spears, well, the musical directors, obviously, they turned a Britney Spears song. What's it called? Oh, Oops, I Did It Again. That one.
Yeah.
Oops, I Did It Again. They turned that into an emotional ballad, and that's song 2, I think, in the show. And you're like, how is this working? But you're also like, it's the best performance I've ever seen in my life. And you're just down for it. You're here for it. It's the audience roar after that song. They roar, and then from then on, they've set the bar. So the rest of the show is just at that level or above.
But all the music is written by Max Martin, who is just huge in the American pop industry. He's wrote stuff for Backstreet Boys and Katy Perry and Britney and Christina.
Well, that's why he could use those songs because they're the exact artist songs that are in the show.
Great. Well, we certainly recommend that everyone listens to that because I've had to listen through that album myself and I think it's brilliant.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And William Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway in it as well are so good.
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway is obviously the driving force in it because she's like the one that's changing William Shakespeare's stories. She's like, well, what if Juliet did this? And he's like, oh, but I'm the storyteller. Turns out she tells stories better.
Okay, so fairly recently we set up our own Spotify playlist, and this is our way of trying to set up what we think is probably like the ultimate musical theatre playlist.
Okay.
So when we set it up, Neil and I each put 10 of our own tracks in, and these are songs that either we've performed or we really like, or they mean something to us. So we set off with 20 there to begin with because who wants a playlist with 4 songs in it? And then since then, we've asked each of the people that have come on for each episode to add another song in. So additions that we've had to that list are Emma Callin chose West Side Story Overture because she wanted something from West Side, but she couldn't decide which. And since it was an old school overture, it has a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah.
Perry O'Day chose Being Alive from Company. Michelle James chose Beautiful from Beautiful.
Yeah,
Chloe Shimon chose Tight Connection to My Heart from Girl from the North Country.
Ooh.
Bethany McGee chose the I Love You song from the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Hillard chose Me in the Sky from Come From Away.
Oh, Come From Away. That's a brilliant one, that.
Isn't it? It's a fantastic show.
Yeah.
So, Lewis Kelly, what's your addition to the playlist?
Oh, it's got to be something from Dear Evan Hansen, hasn't it?
I had a feeling it might be.
Oh, there's a few to choose from, though. You know what? It's got to be the classic. It's got to be Waving Through a Window.
Okay, why is that the ultimate song then to add to our playlist?
It's the one everyone knows the most, and it's the one that got me into the musical. It's the first one I heard, probably because it was the most popular at first, and it probably still is. And you just can't go wrong with it. It's an upbeat song, but has kind of him motivating himself because he is a negative person. So it's got a bit of everything.
Yeah, great, brilliant. Well, Lewis, thank you very much for coming and speaking to us today on the Manx Theatre Podcast. We wish you all the best with all of your future projects whenever they get back off the ground again. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Thank
It's been
you.
a pleasure.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Manx Theatre Podcast.
And with that, we bring episode 19 to a close. Thanks once again to Lewis for joining us on the podcast. Remember to like and follow our social media pages to get notifications of upcoming episodes and events. Don't forget to check out our Spotify playlist by searching for the Manx Theatre Podcast. If you have any events that you'd like us to talk about or promote on a future episode, you can contact us through our social media accounts or by email to manxtheatrepodcast@gmail.com. All that remains is for me to say thanks for listening, and I hope you join us again next time on the Manx Theatre Podcast. I've been Neil Callin. Goodbye.
The Manx Theatre Podcast, taking a look behind the scenes of Manx Theatre.
And happier than actors alive for me.